looking at the Arken Optics SH-4 Gen 2 6-24 by 50 mil optic. So I have it here on my Savage 12FV. I went and zeroed it. Only took me a few shots to get that zero trued. Slipped the scales by releasing all the Allens, lifted it up, put the zero back down, and now what you see me doing right here is just tightening everything up. I'm tightening the zero stop retention screw. That was what that last one was. And then I'm just shoring up and making sure that these turret Allens are tight, and you can use the same key for all of them. So good job to Arken, making sure that we have the same one. We don't have to carry multiple Allens with us. And then I decided to go ahead and test out how many revolutions I could get, how many mils. There are 8 mils per revolution, and so right there's 24, and then I stopped on the 3, so that's 27. Really not bad at all. I do have kind of a steep base on it right at the moment, but 27 out of 32 mils is really quite a lot. You could go very, very far with that, not to mention there's a lot of reticle to use there. Tested out the zero stop, worked great. Went straight from the 100-yard range over to 628 yards. Only had about 20-25 minutes left of sunlight this particular day. Just hanging out with some buddies, and we all took a chance to shoot it and look through the glass and get an opinion of it. I like to run it by other people, both a new shooter and somebody who's a little more experienced, just to see what they think about that glass quality, if they notice anything. And we were all pretty happy with it, actually. I was shooting on a few different powers. I shot on 6 power, on 18 power, and roughly 18, and then on 24 power. And right here in this video that you're watching right now, you have to understand that there's fires in Canada and then northern Minnesota just about an hour away from me, maybe 2 hours away, and that smoke is clouding the air. The visual clarity, the air clarity is terrible, and so you're not going to see really well at even 300 yards, and so we were shooting through a little bit of that kind of smoke and smog look, but the glass itself, I was able to make a good inference here of how good is the glass, and especially with the sun going down and all these issues working through, you know, the smoke, especially the fog coming in, it was really good. Now it's HD glass. It is not like ED glass. It's not $3,000 shot glass that you're going to get in some, you know, tier 1 optic, and they're not trying to pretend that it is. This is just really good glass, especially in a sub, I'm going to say $600 optic, let alone a sub $500 optic. This is really, really good glass. I was quite happy with it. It was not hard for me to pick up my targets and to see impacts or splash down range, even though I was shooting against a dark berm, some dirt, you know, basically for a little bit of a splash, brown splash. With those little tiny 223 bullets, I could still pick it up just fine. In fact, even on lower magnification, it was great. But at the higher magnification, I did not see a bunch of optical issues, which is really what I was looking for, especially considering this reticle right here. I'm going to talk more about the reticle in a second, but I really like what I saw in the full range of the reticle. Now this reticle is illuminated, just so you know, and it's not as washed out as my camera made it look there. It's having issues. There are 6 settings, and I would call it on like an average day, daylight bright. So it's pretty good. I don't complain about that. I really only use it at dusk, such as the footage that you're going to see here in just a second. I'll mention that the center piece is there on the reticle. The very center is what illuminates, and it works real well. For me, on level 2, this particular night I was using it. It was great. It's exactly the amount that I would really use on any given scenario. I don't really use illumination during bright times or daytimes, just at dusk or early in the morning. Worked great. Would have been really good for hunting, actually, on a lower power magnification in that setting. Let's talk about the reticle a little bit. You can see a schematic and kind of a breakdown of those values. If I could recommend anything to Arken, it would probably be in their manual. I would love to see, actually, in this manual, a breakdown of those values, which is easy to find online, not hard at all, but I'd love to see it in the manual just so you could have something with you and study it, look it over, because some of the values are just slightly different than other reticles that are out there. And I'll tell you, I really like this reticle better than what I have in other scopes, especially considering they use every single piece of the reticle for something. Everything has information, everything is useful. If you see top to bottom, left to right, you have different breakdowns, different values, and so you can mill things effectively. If you're going to hold over, you can even see there's kind of a pinnacle there, and then that's divided in half, hollow, and then there's another black line at the base. So every part of this reticle, even the extreme edges and horizontal sides there, they all have purpose, and that's what I want to see in a reticle, especially for a guy who usually dials, you know, for ELR shooting, especially with 22 or 223, I'm going to dial all the elevation out of those turrets, and then I'm going to have to hold over for some extreme long-range shooting. And so I like having something towards the bottom of the reticle. Ideally, you want to shoot through the center of the glass if you can, but I don't think the glass is so bad or so poor in this optic that you can't use, more of the second half of the glass moving down the reticle, especially to where there's numbered lines. All of that was very useful to me, and I did use it effectively. So if you're a holdover guy, thumbs up. It's going to work good for you. Here's some audio to catch the sound of the turrets. You can hear that hard zero stop. So here's your zero stop, and here's the retaining Allen for that. Definitely a nice hard zero stop. Feel very confident in it. Lines up on each line very nicely. That's what you want to see. Excellent, excellent turrets. So just by way of comparison, I have a competitor on the left and the Arken on the right. Look how big those numerical indicators are on the Arken. It's just monstrous, huge turrets. The competitor is a lift to operate, but the Arken is not. And I actually prefer that. It is not a lift to operate turret. Both have zero stops, but I like it better without it, especially on a precision rifle scope. But if you see the illumination knob, it is the size of the competitor's turret, their windage turret there, and that's just impressive. I like the oversized turrets on the Arken by far. Here's a comparison, just a quarter, so you get a reference. There's the competitor scope and turret, which I think is an average sized turret, and here is a proper sized turret. I think this is how scopes should be. I like big turrets. It doesn't get in my way. It just makes it easier to handle and grab, especially considering I wear extra large size gloves. So this makes it much easier, and I think I can just see it better in low light conditions, which is a real issue. A lot of times I want to be able to see what I'm on, even though it does have that zero stop. Here's just a little better comparison. You can see that thing is monstrous. I don't know of many companies, especially in this price point, that are putting out anything remotely close to the size of that turret. And the fact that it's a good quality turret, good stainless internals, trustworthy, high degree of tracking. The ocular lens, there's one more thing I could touch on. The ocular lens ran smoothly enough. I just pretty much always run them right to the right, guys, because I have sort of an eye problem, and it helps me. So mine just stayed all the way to the right. Seems decent, though. Not usually a big issue or topic for conversation. 6 to 24 is the magnification range. This one does not come with like a cattail or a quick throw lever, but you can get those on the website. Please check out Arken's website to see all the other things they have for different packages if you buy one of their scopes. It does come with a sunshade. In fact, I left it on for most of the shooting, and I really didn't need to. It wasn't terribly sunny most of the time when I was shooting. I was shooting in the dusk a lot with this optic, so I really put the glass through a good test. It comes with the bikini covers, which I prefer because in Minnesota, flip covers break in the cold a lot of times, so I just prefer the bikini covers, and it comes with those two things, which is really nice. You could run into more expensive brands, honestly, that aren't throwing in the bikini covers. They aren't throwing in a sunshade. And here's Arken, who's, for the price especially, guys, basically tier 1 tracking. Stainless internals, very trustworthy, very robust, 34mm tube, 6 to 24 mag range. There's just so much that comes with it in that price range, and they're still throwing in the bikini covers, a lens cloth, Allens, a decent manual, a good quality box and packaging, and that sunshade. And so I'm going to say for the competitors, they should probably consider that Arken is kind of handing their butt to them in this area. People like to get free stuff with their optics, and I'm no exception to that. I like getting something free with it, and so when I see a sunshade thrown in there, I really appreciate that. I think that's how Arken is acknowledging the customer, and especially those who are in this price range. Somebody who's kind of budget-minded, which I don't mind saying. It's not an insult to the optic at all. If you guys remember, SWFA was a big company for a while, and they've kind of diminished at this point. But the SWFA fixed power optics, I ran those for years. They were old, reliable. They were kind of a big deal in the precision world for guys just starting out. And I'm going to say I really truly believe Arken has wiped away the memory of SWFA because they've taken the place as a reliable optic, but they've added so much more than SWFA ever had. It's super reliable, it's very, very robust, and then it has all the feature sets that SWFA could never produce or come up with. And so that's not really a rip on SWFA, but it was just really a scope of its time, and now we're past that. And this is the evolution of optics. This is the future of what we're going to be seeing. But honestly, I don't know if the competitors can keep up with the price. There's such an advantage to having the direct access to the manufacturer and the people producing and engineering the product. That's why people are going nuts over Arken optics, is because you can get a really high quality optic and truly pay next to nothing for it comparatively. I don't think you're going to find another optic, guys, that tracks this well or has this reasonable of glass or so many features or comes with like a sunshade and is so robust. It just has everything you probably need. I'm really happy with all the specs on it. If I can just tell you a couple of the specs quickly. The eye relief is 3.5 inches. The field of view is 20.88 to 5.22 feet at 100 yards. Elevation range is 32 mils. Windage range is 10 mils. Per revolution, you're going to get 8 mils. And the parallax adjustment, which is super smooth, by the way, guys, so smooth, is 25 yards to infinity, great for NRL 22 or PRS even. And the length is 14.1 inches, weight is 36.6. I love this optic. I will be holding on to mine, and I think you would appreciate it. Check them out at ArkenOpticsUSA.com.